a traumatic brain injury at 5, Fortune 50 boardrooms in my 30s, and a quiet disorientation that followed me through both. Today on Passion Struck, we're diagnosing the speech impediment of the soul, that hidden whisper telling high achievers, if you stop doing, you stop mattering. We're going to the schoolyard to see why age 5 is the wet cement for your child's worth, how modern life's optimization trap erodes it, and why my new children's book, You Matter, Luma, is more than a story, it's preventative medicine for the human spirit. The trade is over. It's time to be seen. Let's get passion struck. Welcome to Passion Struck. Hi, I'm your host, John R. Miles, and on the show, we decipher the secrets, tips, and guidance of the world's most inspiring people and turn their wisdom into practical advice for you and those around you. Our mission is to help you unlock the power of intentionality so that you can become the best version of yourself. If you're new to the show, I offer advice and answer listener questions on Fridays. We have long-form interviews the rest of the week with guests ranging from astronauts to authors, CEOs, creators, innovators, scientists, military leaders, visionaries, and athletes. Now, let's go out there and become passion struck. I want to take you back with me to a summer afternoon when I was 5 years old. It's a scene most of us recognize. Neighborhood kids, thick humidity hanging in the air, a wild, breathless game of tag. We were tearing between houses, feet pounding the grass, laughing and dodging in that reckless, joyful way children do when play starts pushing every boundary, getting rougher, faster, fueled by childhood adrenaline. And then the line was crossed. One shove from behind, a sudden weightlessness. I remember the sensation of flying, the split second where gravity let go. Then the world exploded in sound and glass. I went headfirst through a basement window, shards scattered like diamonds across the concrete floor. In that single, chaotic instant, the game ended, and my life as I knew it was replaced by a traumatic brain injury that fractured everything. The aftermath wasn't just physical pain, it was a complete rewriting of how I experienced reality. Migraines rolled in like dark, endless storms. Learning, once effortless, became a foggy, frustrating maze. Focus slipped away. Words, things I had always taken for granted, simply wouldn't come. But the deepest wound was the silence. My speech became severely impaired. Inside my head, thoughts still raced, clear, urgent, vibrant. But when I tried to speak, they emerged garbled, halting, trapped. I felt like a heavy steel wall had slammed down between my mind and my mouth. The harder I fought to be understood, the more exaggerated the lag became, a cruel feedback loop of frustration. To make it worse, my vision blurred in one eye. Amblyopia set in, and suddenly I was the kid with the black eye patch, looking different, feeling different, utterly invisible in a crowd of peers. I became convinced of a devastating lie. No one wanted to hear anything I had to say. The world quieted. I shrank every day while the other kids stayed in class. I had to stand up, feel their eyes on my back, and walk out. I crossed that big, wide open schoolyard alone. A 5-year-old carrying the weight of the world, heading toward a small, isolated room where a speech therapist waited. She didn't know it then, but she wasn't just a clinician. She became my lifeline. She didn't only coach tongue placement or the mechanics of a th sound. She listened, truly, patiently. She sat in the silence with me. And in that room, I learned about the wordless tie, that connection that doesn't need a perfect sentence to be real. She was the first person who didn't wait for me to perform speech to show me that I was significant. Through her steady kindness, she showed me that my voice, even when broken, still had value, that I still had value. She became the first real crack in the darkness, the quiet foundation I rebuilt my confidence on. Yet, as I grew up and my speech slowly returned, I realized the physical impediment wasn't the only thing I carried. Beneath the surface, a deeper quiet endured. I call it the speech impediment of the soul. It's that persistent feeling of not fully registering, of being unseen, even when surrounded. I carried it into the Navy. I carried it into Fortune 50 boardrooms. I tried to drown it out by overachieving, checking every marker of success, hoping that if I did enough, the world would finally see me. But that quiet disorientation doesn't vanish with a promotion or a title. It trails you into relationships, into moments of triumph, whispering the old lie: you only matter if you perform. Before that window shattered, I was just a normal kid. I blended in. I was part of the pack. But in the wake of that injury, the normalcy evaporated. Suddenly, I was different. And in the ecosystem of a schoolyard, being different can be a very dangerous thing. Kids can be remarkably kind, but they can also be unintentionally cruel. The stares, the teasing, the way conversations parted around me like water around a rock. I wasn't just the kid who got hurt. I was the kid with the eye patch, the kid whose words didn't work. And the part that still feels heaviest when I remember it, those daily walks of shame. Every afternoon at the same hour, I stood up from my desk and I felt 30 pairs of eyes follow me out the door and cross that exposed yard in plain view of everyone. The field became a stage, and my only role was the broken one. I didn't want to be special. I didn't want to be resilient. I just wanted to disappear, pull the eye patch over my whole face, and vanish in the floorboards. When you're 5 or 6 and the world is already telling you through stares, teasing, in those specialized rooms that you don't quite fit, you start to believe that your presence is a burden, a joke. You stop trying to speak because the cost of being misunderstood is higher than the cost of silence. So you trade your voice for safety. This is where the quiet disorientation begins. This is where we learn to hide. And for so many of us, we spend the rest of our lives building massive, impressive structures, careers, reputations, achievements, just to hide the fact that we still feel like the kid walking across the yard, hoping no one notices us, yet desperate for someone to finally say, "You still count." Hiding in adulthood rarely looks like literal silence anymore. Most of the time, it's the opposite. It's loud, busy, accomplished hiding. We hide by staying relentlessly productive, so no one has time to see the uncertainty underneath. We hide by collecting titles, credentials, followers, or wins that act like armor, proof that we're enough if anyone looks too closely. We hide by filling every gap with noise, meetings, side hustles, constant optimization, so the old whisper of "you don't quite register" never gets a quiet moment to speak. Overachieving becomes the most socially acceptable form of invisibility. You're everywhere, doing everything, yet still protecting that tender part inside that's afraid it doesn't count on its own. What I have learned over the past 18 years of trying to fix why I was so broken is that this isn't just my story. It's the hidden pattern behind countless high achievers and the lonely, the broken, the burned out, quietly compensating for a childhood when we felt we didn't matter. So let me pause here and invite you into your own reflection. Take a quiet moment, maybe close your eyes and ask yourself these 4 questions to help diagnose your own quiet disorientation. No need to shout out loud. This is just between you and that inner kid who still walks the yard. First question: where in my life right now do I catch myself overperforming or overcompensating to feel seen, valued, or safe? A promotion chase, people pleasing, perfectionism in small things. Second question, when was the last time I felt truly registered? Seen for who I am, not for what I produce or achieve. And how rare does that feeling seem? Third question, if my titles, achievements, productivity, or usefulness were stripped away tomorrow, who are the one or two people or moments that would still make me feel like I matter, no strings attached? And the fourth question, what early echo, maybe a childhood memory of feeling invisible, burdensome, or different, still whispers that my worth is conditional on what I do rather than who I am? Sit with those for a beat. Notice what comes up. That subtle unease, that drive to do more, to quiet the silence, that's often the speech impediment of the soul showing itself. Before we continue, I want to pause for a moment. One of the deepest insights we've discussed today is that mattering is learned through experience, not just reassurance. It forms when a child or an adult realizes that their presence changes the emotional weather of the room. That truth begins early. My upcoming children's book, You Matter, Luma, which launches February 24th, is designed as a tool to help children feel that truth in their bodies before they learn to earn belonging through pleasing, performing, or disappearing. I have a specific invitation for you today. If this conversation resonates with you, if you want to help plant this preventative medicine in the lives of the next generation, I invite you to pre-order the book right now at Barnes & Noble. Here is why that specific choice matters. Barnes & Noble uses pre-order data to decide which books they carry in their stores nationwide. We have a goal of 300 pre-orders to ensure this message is available on shelves across the country. Your single order is a signal that this message counts. It is a way for you to participate in breaking the cycle of silence. And for those of you looking to go deeper, each episode in this series includes guided reflection prompts within the Ignited Life. These prompts are designed to help you examine where your relationships circulate care and where they quietly extract it. You can find those at theignitedlife.net. Now, a quick break for our sponsors. Thank you for supporting those who support this show. You're listening to Passion Struck on the Passion Struck Network. Now, let's return to the conversation and look at the optimization trap that keeps us from seeing ourselves clearly. Let's talk about the difference between mattering through achievement and mattering through existence. Most of us have been trained quietly, relentlessly, to believe we matter because of what we do. I call this mattering through achievement. It's the performance trap. You feel significant when you hit the target, the promotion, the perfect quarterly numbers, the viral post, the spotless house, the marathon PR. Every win becomes proof that you exist. Every loss becomes evidence you're falling short. It's seductive because it works for a while. The world rewards it. Society measures it. Your paycheck, your LinkedIn profile, your inner critic, they all run on that same scorecard. But here's the problem. It's fragile. It depends entirely on external validation. It can be taken away in an instant, a layoff, a market crash, aging out of peak performance. When the scoreboard flips, so does your sense of worth. You're back to that kid crossing the yard, wondering if anyone notices. And the more you succeed, the higher the stakes become. As renowned psychologist Barry Schwartz and I explored earlier this week, we become a culture of maximizers. We treat our lives like spreadsheets, chasing the absolute best in every domain, only to end up paralyzed by anxiety and regret. For decades, we've been sold a seductive promise. More choice equals more freedom. We're told that if we gather just enough data and run the right algorithm, we can optimize our lives into perfect satisfaction. But as Barry and I discussed on the show, the opposite is true. We've become maximizers. We treat our time like a commodity and our lives like a spreadsheet. We've outsourced our judgment to metrics, KPIs, and algorithms, constantly checking the dashboard to see if we're winning. Here's the danger. When life becomes an optimization problem, Your dignity erodes. If you are only as valuable as your last metric, you are, by definition, replaceable. Barry proposes a different path. He calls it virtue-based decision-making. It means we stop asking, what's the max utility I can get out of this? And we start asking, what kind of person will I become if I do this? This is the antidote to the performance trap. Mattering through achievement keeps us calculating, optimizing, and hiding behind our productivity. Mattering through existence invites us to show up as we are right now. It is the radical shift from seeing yourself as a unit of production to knowing that you are a center of significance. When you reclaim your judgment, you reclaim your voice. You stop being a data point and start being the author of your own story. Children are born wired for this truth. Watch a toddler explore a room. They don't question whether they deserve to be there. They just are, curious, present, fully occupying their space. That innate sense of worth is the mattering instinct. It's biological. Philosophers and developmental psychologists tell us it's as fundamental as attachment. When a child's presence is mirrored back as valuable, their brains register safety. When it isn't, when the mirroring is conditional or absent, the brain interprets it as a threat. And modern life is very good at turning that instinct into a performance script. From the star chart in kindergarten to the stack ranking in the corporate office, we are optimized out of intrinsic worth. We learn early. Love, attention, approval are all rewards for output. Grades, likes, bonuses, they all teach us the same lesson. You matter to the degree that you produce. By the time we're adults, the trade feels normal. We've internalized it so deeply that resting in existence feels risky. We build entire lives around the performance trap because it once protected us from the pain of feeling invisible. But protection becomes a prison. Overachievement becomes the adult version of trading your voice for safety. And here's the quiet irony. The higher we climb, the more we secretly fear the fall. Because deep down, we still believe the old lie, if I stop doing, I stop mattering. This is why so many successful people feel quietly disoriented even at the top. The boardroom looks different from the schoolyard, but the whisper is the same. Prove it again and again and again, or you vanish. But it doesn't have to stay that way. And that brings us to why this matters so urgently for the next generation, and why I wrote You Matter Luma specifically for children ages 3 to 8. I didn't write this book to just tell another cute story. I wrote it to act like a shield. Developmental psychology shows us that children arrive with an innate mattering instinct, a biological necessity as fundamental as attachment or safety. From the moment they open their eyes, they seek mirroring, eye contact, responsive smiles, simple affirmations that say, you are here and your presence matters. When that mirroring is constant and unconditional, the brain registers belonging and security. However, when it's conditional, tied to performance, grades, wins, or absent, the brain registers threat. That early threat response wires the patterns we carry forward. Compensation, withdrawal, the quiet disorientation that follows us into adulthood. Between the ages of 3 and 8, a child's self-concept is like wet cement. It's the precise window when they're most vulnerable to the optimization trap. They start looking around the schoolyard, comparing themselves to others, and asking the quiet question, where do I rank? If we don't intentionally plant the language of intrinsic worth in that exact window, the world will happily hand them the performance script later. That's the mission of You Matter Luma. It is preventative medicine for the soul. In the story, Luma discovers that her spark, her significance, isn't tied to being the fastest, the loudest, the smartest, or the most perfect. It's simply there, Because she is. It plants the seed through gentle, wonder-filled narrative. It affirms existence before the world convinces her value must be earned. By nurturing that innate mattering instinct at age 5, we give children an internal compass. 30 years from now, when they're sitting in a boardroom, facing a layoff, or watching their own child struggle, they won't have to rebuild from the same silence we did. They already know I matter, not because of what I produce, but because I exist. As parents, educators, and leaders, we are the primary mattering mirrors for the children in our lives. When we only celebrate the A on the test, the goal on the field, the fastest time, the home run, we polish the mirror of achievement, but we miss the human behind it. Excellence is what they do. Mattering is who they are. This doesn't mean we stop encouraging excellence. It means we decouple excellence from worth. We want our children to strive because they are inspired, not because they fear that failing will make them invisible. Even if they crash through the glass one day, like I did, even if they find themselves walking across the yard alone, even if the world tells them they don't quite fit, their fundamental value remains untouched. The beauty of this work is that when we teach a child they matter through existence, we are also speaking to the 5-year-old still living inside each of us. When you read You Matter, Luma to a child, you are repeating the words your own soul needed to hear when you were wearing that eye patch, feeling the processing lag, crossing the yard alone, trading your voice for safety. You are telling that inner version of yourself, the trade is over. You don't have to hide anymore. You count. No strings attached. That's the shield. That's how we break the cycle, not by fixing adults who are already carrying the silence, but by protecting children before the silence ever takes root. And once the shield is in place, we can begin the daily practice of reinforcing it. So, how do we actually protect that shield in daily life? How do we become the consistent, unconditional mattering mirrors our children and our own inner child need? The answer lies in something that I've been talking about these past few weeks that my sister Carolyn helped me name. I mentioned it earlier in this episode. I call it the wordless tie. The wordless tie is the silent, profound connection that says, you matter, without needing perfect words, achievements, or explanations. It's the glance that lingers a second longer, the hand on the shoulder during a hard moment, the undivided attention when no one is watching. It's presence that registers existence, not output. It's what my speech therapist gave me in the small room decades ago. She didn't wait for my words to be fixed before she showed me that I was significant. We can give that same gift today without star charts, gold stars, trophies, or good job rankings. Here are practical, repeatable ways to create the wordless tie in homes and classrooms. The first is a daily 10-minute undistracted presence ritual. The way you do this is you set aside 10 minutes a day where the child leads completely. No agenda, no correction, no teaching moment. You follow their play, their story, their questions. Your only job is to be fully present, to mirror their choices back with curiosity and warmth. I see you chose the blue block first. Tell me why that one felt right. While you're doing it, no phone. Don't even think about multitasking. Just eyes, ears, and calm attention. And here's why it works. Because it proves to the child that their existence registers with you, even when they're not performing. It builds the neural pathway of unconditional safety. Here's the second practice you can do. Shift from result praise to humanity praise, something I call the mattering script. Replace achievement-focused praise with presence-focused language. Here are some swaps that you can try out. Instead of saying, I am so proud of the A that you got on the test, say instead, I noticed how much heart and curiosity you put into studying. That part of you lights me up. Instead of saying, great job scoring that goal, say instead, I love watching you play with such joy and determination. It shows me who you are inside. Instead of saying, you're the smartest, fastest, best in class, say instead, I see how persistent you were when it got hard. That persistence is such a beautiful part of you. And lastly, instead of saying, you did it perfectly, say instead, I'm glad you tried something new. I love seeing you explore and grow, no matter the outcome. Here's the key: praise the effort, the character, the humanity, not the ranking or result. This decouples worth from performance. The third thing you can do is to eliminate the rank in everyday moments. This starts by dropping comparative language. Things like, you're better than your brother at this. Remove reward charts or sticker systems that tie affection to output. And when disappointment happens, such as receiving a low grade or missing a goal in a game, respond with, this moment doesn't change how much you matter to me. I'm here with you in it no matter what. Why this works is children internalize that their value is constant, not conditional. And then lastly, the adult mattering audit, a daily check-in for you. Because before you can fully mirror mattering to a child, you need to feel it in yourself. Here is a quick 3-question audit that you can use each evening, either as a journal or mental reflection. Ask yourself, today, where did I seek validation through what I produced rather than who I am? Second, where did I feel truly seen for my existence, not for my output, even if it was just a quiet moment alone? And then third, what one small act tomorrow can I do to reclaim my own wordless tie, to remind myself I matter without having to earn it? When you practice this, you model the Luma Truth. Your child sees a parent who is secure in existence, not chasing endless metrics. These tools are simple. They don't require any special training or expensive resources. They require only your intention, presence, and the courage to stop optimizing for a moment. Because the wordless tie isn't about saying the perfect thing, it's about being the steady mirror that says, you are here, you are enough, you matter right now as you are. When we give our children and ourselves that mirror consistently, the quiet disorientation loosens its grip, the cycle breaks, and a new generation grows up knowing they count with no strings attached. Thank you for joining me on this journey from that shattered basement window in my 5-year-old world across the wide open schoolyard of quiet disorientation to the boardrooms and bedrooms where we still whisper the old lie, prove it or you vanish. We've talked about the performance trap that keeps so many of us calculating, optimizing, and hiding behind productivity. We reclaimed the Luma Truth that you matter simply because you exist. We've seen how the optimization script erodes dignity and how virtue-based choosing, the wordless tie, and daily presence can restore it. And we've named the shield, protecting the next generation before silence ever takes root. This is how we break the cycle. One intentional mirror, one wordless connection, one child, and one inner child at a time. If today's conversation stirred something in you, the recognition of your own quiet disorientation, or the desire to give the children in your life a different story, here are a few simple steps. Start small tomorrow. Try the 10-minute undistracted presence ritual with a child or with yourself. Swap one praise phrase using the mattering script. Run the adult mattering audit before bed. Pick up a copy of You Matter Luma. The book is now available for pre-order. It's designed precisely for this moment, a gentle, wonder-filled story that plants the seeds of intrinsic worth in ages 3 to 8. When you read it with a child, you're not just sharing words, you're repeating the affirmation your own soul once needed. Pre-order links are in the show notes or on my site. And if you want to keep this conversation going, watch the full episode on our YouTube channel. Search for Passion Struck with John R. Miles, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and leave a comment. Where did the quiet disorientation show up for you today? Your stories matter. Next week, we're diving even deeper into this very theme. My guest is philosopher and New York Times bestselling author Rebecca Goldstein, who wrote the new groundbreaking book, The Mattering Instinct. We explore how mattering is wired into the human condition, why modern life often severs that wiring, and how reclaiming it can ignite a life of purpose and connection. You won't want to miss it.
We are so different by temperament, belief systems, value systems, our culture, our talents, our passions, and that individuality all goes into how we respond to this shared motivation that we have, deep motivation that shapes our lives. And none of us want to waste our life. We want to respond in the right way to this instinct. And we all make the distinction that there are right ways and wrong ways. And we want to, in appeasing this longing and answering the question, do I really matter? That motivates all this.
Until then, remember, you are not a unit of production. You are a center of significance. Your presence registers right now as you are. The trade is over. You don't have to hide anymore. You count, no strings attached. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next time on Passion Struck. Go ignite your life.